done for him?
We call an ambulance, we get him to the hospital, that's what.
Miles, he's never going to let that happen.
He's in no condition to argue, is he?
But going to the hospital is the same thing as going to jail.
This might make the difference between life and death. Why are you so interested in protecting
I don't. No, I'll have to explain why later.
There'll be a lot of explaining to do later.
Okay, just stand back, get away!
Oh, no, please. Please, you gotta get back into bed. You trying to kill yourself?
I'm trying to save myself, Doctor. That's what I'm going to do.
You want to wander the streets in your condition. That's all right. That's your choice. But please let Jody go. I promise I'm not going to keep you from leaving.
No. She comes with me. She's my only protection. She's my passport. Now, I'm going out this door. If I see it open again, she dies.
This waiting is driving me nuts. I don't care what he said or what you said. I still should have followed Miles.
No, situations like this are too touchy. You can't take chances with somebody as desperate as this. He's like a wild animal.
Miles will know how to handle this. He's not going to let anything happen to Jody. Hello?
It's me. Is Derek still there?
Oh, Miles, is Jody all right? And what's been happening?
Please, Nicole, she's all right so far. Now, try not to worry. Just let me speak to Derek, please.
All right. Derek.
Miles, what's happening? Is Jody all right?
He's taking her hostage again. Had a knife. There's nothing I could do, except he's hurt.
How badly is he hurt?
Took a bullet out of him. He's lost a lot of blood. He's very weak. I don't think he can get very far without further medical attention.
Let me
Talk to him, Derek, please.
Miles, please, give me a description of the guy.
They still have her, don't they?
The role of Skylar Whitney is temporarily being played by James Horan.
Well, well. Jeff Brown, you double-dyed villain. Look at this. A nearly perfect copy of my signature. Practice makes forgery perfect, doesn't it? Ah, another bank statement. I take that back. You're not such a rat after all. Very impressive. And here's a financial report from the ZAB Corporation in Canada. Beautiful. Profits up 29% over last year.
Mr. Whitney?
Mr. Diedrichson, hello. Come in, come in.
Thank you.
Have a seat, won't you? Is there anything I can get for you? A drink, maybe?
No. Thank you.
You seem a little uncomfortable. I did ask you over, you know.
Well, our last meeting did have some conflict in it.
Hmm? Oh, yes, of course, I do remember now. But things were very different then. I was suspicious of everyone. And I'm sure at the time you had good reason to be suspicious of me.
Well, now that we're even, would you like to start over fresh?
My sentiments exactly. As you can see, I'm doing my best to pull the threads of my life together and mend a few fences while I'm at it. You could call it starting fresh.
Well, I wish you luck.
Thank you. Things are falling into place very nicely. I'm beginning to get back on the track in a number of ways, both personally and in business.
Well, you had a very difficult transition to make.
After the last year, a quantum leap. But now that I've surmounted the biggest obstacle, I'm beginning to feel a good deal more generous toward the world at large. It's a good feeling to be expansive, especially when it doesn't cost you anything.
Does this expansive feeling have anything to do with the Whitney Theater?
I see you're ahead of me. About a couple of questions first.
Okay.
I understand you were on the verge of forming a dramatic repertory company here in Monticello?
Well, I did form a repertory company. It was pretty good. We had a decent property. We'd actually started rehearsals, and we had an opening date. And then,
Then a certain wicked lady named Raven came in and pulled the rug out from under you, is that it?
Exactly.
You had no choice but to cancel the project.
No choice. We had no theater, so we had nowhere to go. So we had to do a retreat.
You didn't exactly retreat, did you? From what I've learned, the theater was the prize you and your actor friends were after. The reason you created the fantastic hoax against Raven?
Yeah, I had something to do with that, and I'm not proud of it.
Leave your guilt outside the door, Diedrichson. Spencer pointed out, and rightfully, that it was your glorious scam against Raven which gave us the means to extract the truth from her. So I'd say I have some reason to feel grateful to all of you. But let's get to the point of all this, shall we? I have a proposition to make to you. If you and your friends will pay for the lighting equipment, props, sets, etc., I will give you the theater rent-free for a period of 1 year.
A year?
Let me finish. After the year is up, I'll expect the normal rental fee from then on.
Is this for real? Mr. Whitney, I don't know what to say.
You don't have to say anything. It's to my advantage, too, you know. The theater isn't drawing a nickel just standing empty, so I'll realize a profit later on. And have a fully equipped theater in the bargain. And there's one other thing I'm getting out of all this. What Raven took away with one hand, I'm giving back with the other. She won't enjoy that, will she?
I must say, Spencer, having to go through an entire list of possessions with my nephew is very distasteful indeed.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Saxon. I understand how you feel.
And I'm not blaming you. I know you're just doing your job. But I do think Skylar could be perfectly satisfied with my inventory of the personal property of this house. The list of furnishings is quite accurate, I can assure you. I've gone through it myself half a dozen times.
I'm sure that Mr. Whitney would never doubt your word, Mrs. Saxon, but he has asked me to pay particular attention to Raven's personal possession list.
I hope this isn't going to turn into a juvenile shoving match over whose toys belong to whom. I don't mind telling you that he was exactly the same way as a child. He would never share a single thing with anyone, no matter what the persuasion. Well, that isn't quite true. I do remember once he lent a baseball after he'd received a black eye.
I believe that Mr. Whitney had something more in mind than a baseball, Mrs. Saxon. If I may point out, for instance, there's a list of jewelry. Now, there's no indication here of which items belonged to Raven prior to her marriage to the imposter and which items he purchased for her.
For heaven's sake, you're not telling me that Skylar was going to ask Raven to give back every single gift she received from her husband.
I'm afraid he's very adamant on that point.
But that's absurd. Not only that, it's mean-spirited of him to insist on such a thing. He's turned into a veritable Shylock, demanding his pound of flesh.
Mr. Whitney's reasoning is that most or all of these items were purchased with his money, so rightfully they belong to him.
Good Lord, Spencer, look at this list. What could he possibly do with a diamond bracelet, a pearl necklace, and a pair of emerald earrings? He certainly can't wear any of them. Not even in a tuxedo. That's funny, Spencer.
If you say so, Mrs. Saxon. But in regards to these items, he could sell them. He could put them in a vault if he chose, or he could give them to, well, someone else. But regardless of his intentions, he's going to demand a full documentation of this list and other properties as well. That's the way he wants it.
But that's unthinkable. Virtually everything Raven owns was a gift from her husband. If Skylar's going to be so inflexible, she could really come out of this a pauper.
I'm very sorry, Mrs. Saxon, but those are my instructions, and as much as I regret it, I have another demand to pass on.
You seem to have a whole portfolio of demands today, don't you? What is it?
Mr. Whitney has asked that both you and Raven vacate the house within the next 24 hours.
But that's the most preposterous demand of all. Raven isn't even here. She's out of town, and I don't know exactly when she'll be back.
I realize that, and I explained it to Mr. Whitney, but...
But what?
Well, he said that she had no right leaving town at a time like this.
When Skylar's sitting in the driver's seat, he really drives, doesn't he?
Mrs. Saxon, by leaving town at this moment, Raven has only made him all the more insistent. He's instructed me to say that you must be out of the house by this time tomorrow, and if there is any personal belonging that Raven wishes to retrieve later, its ownership must, of course, be verified.
I'm sorry, Spencer. I'm sorry you really don't see the humor in all of this. But to me, it smacks of 19th century melodrama. The mean landlord throws his poor old aunt and her ward out into the street nowhere to go but the Monticello Arms.
One of the area's finer residential hotels, I believe.
Yes. Now, the only thing not amusing about this whole thing is when Raven comes home. To find she's been cleaned out. I'll have a raging tigress on my hands. No, no. In my view, Skylar is being unnecessarily cruel. He's turned out to be just like his impersonator, Jefferson Brown.
At least he has right on his side, Mrs. Saxon.
Mm-hmm. Fortified by might. Skylar must really despise Raven if he's using his might to punish her like this.
He does have good reason. Doesn't he?
I suppose so. But still, it's something that I'm never going to be able to make Raven understand. I'm afraid she thinks that he can still be won over.
If only men knew what we women went through.
Only 45 minutes to go, Mrs. Whitney.
Wait a minute! In 45 minutes, there won't be anything left of me.
Please don't try and fight it anymore. It's no use. Look, you're badly hurt. You heard what Dr. Kavanaugh said. You need help. You've got to get to a hospital. Please, you can't run anymore.
Kavanaugh, he's your brother-in-law, right?
Yes. He's a fine doctor, and he knows what he's talking about. And I wish you wouldn't have frightened him by threatening me with a knife. My family is worried enough about me as it is.
Don't hate me for what I had to do, Jody. I couldn't hurt you, please, believe me. I had to frighten him enough so that he wouldn't try to follow me. I have to try to save my country. If he'd called an ambulance, it would mean prison for me.
Well, wouldn't you prefer that than to be bleeding to death in an abandoned building?
I can't help my country from inside a prison cell.
You can't help them from a morgue either.
Why didn't you try to run away when you had the chance?
Because you needed help. And I wasn't going to leave you there alone. Pietro, I'm trying to help you. Can't you understand that?
Yes, I understand. But I only have one chance left. If you really want to help me, get me to the bookstore. Mr. Keyes will help us. We'll go there after closing time. He'll help us. I know he will. He's always helped me before.
Just take it easy. Nice and slow.
Okay.
Oh, Miles. Well, where is she? Is she all right?
She's okay. Kid had a knife. He threatened to hurt Jody if I made a move to help her. I didn't have any choice. I had to let him go.
Oh, Miles.
I don't think he really meant it. I think he just made the threat to keep me from stopping his escape, and I wasn't about to put him to the test.
But Miles, what's this all about? You have any idea what it is they want?
I don't have any idea, except I think he's motivated by some kind of political movement.
But why would they choose Jody for a political kidnapping? She has absolutely nothing to do with politics. She's barely old enough to vote.
Well, it must be a political fanatic of some kind of terrorist.
But from where?
Jody says he's from the Republic of Eden.
Oh, God, of course, that painting has something to do with it, but I don't know what.
Look, Miles, I can't understand why she wouldn't try to make an escape while you were working on the guy.
I told her to go. I urged her to get out of there, but she wouldn't. She had to stay to make sure he was going to be all right.
Would she be concerned about a guy who was keeping her kidnapped for 2 days?
What did they do to her? Brainwash her?
I don't know. I don't know. The whole thing's a mystery to me.
I don't care. I just want her home safe and sound, and I want that madman found and locked up for good.
Amen to that.
Hello.
Miles, it's Calvin.
Miss Calvin, where are you?
I'm in the kidnapper's room. Listen, I swear for the life of me, I can't find anything around here to indicate where he might have taken her.
All right, what now?
Well, I've got one good hunch left, and I'm gonna follow it.
Bryson,
Yes.
you are looking at a man who is revitalized, reborn, and totally at your service.
What? Mr. Diedrichs, I am overcome. To what do you owe this sudden transformation?
To you.
I get credit for all this?
Yes.
What? What? Tell me.
We have the Whitney Theater back.
Oh, Jim, that's the greatest news ever. So Sky called you. I asked him to.
Yes, he did. And he gave me a second chance.
Oh.
And I owe you a lot. And I want to show you my appreciation.
So what did he say? What did he say?
Well, I just came from a meeting with him. I couldn't believe it. He was really nice. He gave me the theater for a year, rent-free. There are stipulations that are going to be kind of hard to come up with, but I think we can handle it.
Well, what stipulations?
Well, he wants the whole theater re-equipped, not the hack job that we did before.
Oh, Jim, that's going to be expensive. You can't afford that.
No, I can't. But we can get donations from the community. I mean, we can get paint, we can get lumber, we can do all the hard work ourselves, and I'm sure I can talk the actors into doing a showcase in their own theater. Now, I will work all day, all night.
And I want to help you as much as I can.
Okay, we'll make you the official photographer.
All right, but I want to do more than that. Oh, Jim, this is great. I just know you're going to make it this time.
And we can get Gavin to direct, and I'm sure I can get Cliff and Mitzi to come back in, and maybe I can even talk you into doing a role.
I don't know about that. Hello?
Is this Valerie?
Yes, it is.
Skylar Whitney.
Oh, hi.
I was wondering if you were free for dinner tonight.
Well,
Don't you want to hear what a nice, generous fellow I was today?
well, I know all about that, and I really think it's wonderful, and I do want to thank you.
I'd like to hear it in person.
Well, all right.
I'll see you at 7 then. I'll see you later, Valerie. Bye.
Mr. Whitney.
Yes?
I'm Nora Fulton. I wonder if I could speak to you for a few minutes.
Well, come in.
Thank you. I'm a friend of...
Yes, I know who you are, Nora. Sit down, won't you?
Well, thank you. Well, I know you're going to be hiring people for your domestic staff. And since there is no one who knows the Whitney house better than I do, I hope you'll consider me for a job.
Well, I know that Gunther Wagner thinks very highly of your work, but there's another member of my staff who doesn't share his opinion, I'm afraid. What impeccable timing, Spencer.
Hello, Skylar. Hello, Nora. What are you doing here?
Applying for a job.
I'm sorry to hear that.
I'll tell you what, Nora. I'm going out on an errand. Meanwhile, if you can convince Spencer that I should hire you, the job is yours. Good luck, Miss Fulton, was it? Yes.
Convince me, Nora.
We're safe here. Mr. Keys?
You move ahead, I mean it.
Calvin.
Who are you?
Detective Stone, Monticello Police Department.
You know him?
Yes. How did you know we were going to be here at the bookshop?
I didn't, Jody. Just had a hunch. Thought your friend here might not be aware that his accomplice, Mr. Keys, had a heart attack and died.
Oh, no, don't tell me that. That poor old man.
So now there's nothing for you to come back to but the police.
What about Viva? What about my friend Viva? What's happened to her?
I'm afraid she's dead, too.
Dear God, no.
Calvin, how did it happen?
She was killed in the shootout that you and this guy ran away from today.
You know, Calvin, there are some things that I want to tell you and the police that you don't understand. These people, they didn't want to hurt me. It's not an ordinary kidnapping. Believe me, it sounds strange, but there are circumstances.
Yeah, okay, Jody. Well, he'll just have to tell the whole story to the proper authorities, and then they'll decide. Now, what I want you to do is dial that number. Don't you move.